time to graduate. And I look back, I probably should have tried to get my master's or something. Or I didn't have the money, but it was a tough time to find a job. Things were bad in America, business. But I went to a job interview at a company called Coastal Services, and they were a local cleanup company, oil spill and hazardous fuel cleanup company. They were in Boston, New York, Philly, and Baltimore. And when I went into the job interview in New Jersey, the vice president of marketing was Jim O'Brien.
Oh.
So I was pretty sure I was going to do well in that interview. And he turned out to be a partner of mine. We were a partner in business for 20 years after that. But I had an office in Elizabeth under the Goethals Bridge, which is a very industrial area near the Exxon refinery. And I also shared an office at the World Trade Center in the 63rd floor. A wonderful place.
Yeah, that's not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah.
I think one question that we've come up with is, and I know you've explained this to me, about how when a vessel filled with oil leaves port, what happens to that vessel? It gets sold a few different times to a few different companies, and that's kind of how there's such a fluctuation in gas prices. Do I have that right?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily imply the price goes up. But I was very fortunate to work for Vitol, a Dutch company, for 2.5 years in Cape Canaveral. Vitol is the largest non-oil company oil trader. And the company wanted to build a new oil terminal in Cape Canaveral. And I sort of took a sabbatical from my company and worked with them for 2.5 years, building a greenfield automated oil terminal, modern oil terminal. It was a wonderful project to be part of. I learned a lot. But they wanted to be able to store oil, make the sale, and sell it from here. Or someplace like Disney or the cruise lines or racetrack. They could stockpile it here, have the contract, and be able to sell and resell. And now they're shipping by rail, oil out by rail.
Mm-hmm.
So it's oil can be sold and resold and bought many times. In Nigeria, they would Vitol stores their oil offshore in oil tankers.
Smart.
So it's a great business.
Well, talk a little bit about what went into project management for that. I know that I remember being on site there. There was a number of tanks, and didn't they have some sort of a state-of-the-art manifold intake system?
No, I think the manifold you're talking about was the project in Tampa. But the Greenfield terminal, I was there for 2.5 years, and with the help of others, I helped bring 27 government permits to fruition. 18 tanks. They bring in oil and can export oil from there. Mostly light products, mostly white products like the gasoline. There's not a lot of persistent oil. The persistent oils there are bunkering for the cruise ships, and they pipeline the bunker fuel to the cruise ships, all but one dock by pipeline. So they built a wonderful terminal. I really was impressed with the Dutch. They do things right, and it was a great company to be part of.
Now you said
what happened at that project? We went active, and the BP spill happened. And it was too much of an opportunity for me, and I left to go work on the BP spill for 4 months.
I definitely want to get to BP in just a second, but just so everybody understands, you said 18 or 19 tanks.
18.
And when you say tank, you're not talking about the tank that's on my truck. You're talking about how many gallons? I know they're all different, but on average.
Yeah, well, the tanks are about. Well, let me start from the beginning. Because it's the port, each tank has nearly 1,300 pilings and then the cone-shaped tank bottom is fixed to the pilings, and there's a large concrete slab, and then the tank is built around that. And the tank can be 300 feet wide, 180 feet wide, and a couple hundred feet high. And again, that's nothing more than a steel balloon. They lined the entire tank farm, so if there was any spillage, it wouldn't impact Cape Canaveral. They built a great dock front. If you go there, the Cape Canaveral, they have the largest marine loading arms in the world, because that dock's used by other facilities. So the marine loading arms have to stretch over 100 feet before it goes to the manifold on a vessel. So they really did a good job on that. And Cape Canaveral, the Port of Cape Canaveral, has to be commended on the engineering side. It was a great group to work with.
Didn't they get those loading docks from Port of Savannah?
No, I think you're thinking about the container ship offloading docks that they just purchased from Port Savannah.
That is what I was thinking about.
No, these came from Amsterdam. They were made in Amsterdam. It's not a unique model. It's just that the largest model that these cannon loading arms are there.
All right, let's get to BP, because that's a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess we're getting away from traveling. It's hard.
Well, you traveled for BP.
Yes. As a matter of fact, that was a great opportunity. And once you could buy the loss of life and the debacle of the incident, which involved a lot of companies, not just BP. And if you can watch Mark Wahlberg starring in that Deepwater Horizon, it happens to be on Showtime now. I'm told by those involved that it's pretty close to what happened. But I got there after the fact. I really have to give BP all the credit in the world. They're a great corporate citizen. They just didn't throw money at it. They did everything safely. They did everything by our U.S. laws. It was an impressive group to work with. Now, they hired 63,000 people on that oil spill. They could very well have let it drag on for 3 or 4 years, but that wasn't their goal. The goal was to get it over with, get that well open again, and get it started. And we were forcing these companies out 15 miles offshore and 5,000 feet of water. I know that's not an excuse, but you really are pushing the envelope.
Yeah. More than 200 million gallons. But what made it so different than all the other oil spills is that it wasn't a topical. It was coming from the ocean floor, 5,000 feet down, which is what made it such a. It wasn't like it was in a puddle. I mean, that's difficult to get to 5,000 feet before you even talk about plugging it. Now, can we talk about the science a little bit about what exactly happened? Because I just know that there was an oil spill. I don't really know, and most people don't know what actually happened.
Well, as quickly as I can, there were different contractors. There was a contractor that managed the rig. There were contractors that managed the drilling. There were government agencies that controlled that and had to sign off on what was being done. And then there's BP that oversees the entire operation. And it just was a plethora of mistakes, like the perfect oil spill. It all came together. Basically, they tested the well when it wasn't ready to be tested. In order to get production, they were pretty close. And it was a pretty good operation. And that was a floating well. It wasn't attached to the bottom as you would think a typical oil rig would be. There was actually propellers that constantly, through a computer, kept it fixed over top of the wellhead 5,000 feet down. It's remarkable.
That is remarkable.
The oil company technology is remarkable. And there was things that start to happen. There was a backflow preventer that failed. It's assumed that the backflow preventer, there were casings that are marked that weren't retrieved from the well, and a casing might have gotten caught in the backflow preventer. Backflow preventer, I was working out in the field in Venice, which was the closest finger piers flying the vessels offshore. And I remember looking at my trailer, and three, black SUVs came in with a truck, and the FBI was taking the backflow preventer right off the offshore service vessel and taking it in for investigative work. It's about the size of a Volkswagen, and the whole idea is as the backflow starts coming, it shuts down. Well, that didn't work. There was something that interfered with it, and
right.
That's what started the well going.
Right. Well, let's go back to a little fun stuff. Let's talk about travel a little bit. I know you went so many different parts, so this might be like a 4-part answer. But what about the rest of the world strikes you as being so different than here, than the way we do things?
Well, you seem to really like the countries that are like us. One of my most enjoyable trips was to Australia. I mean, it was like, the first night there, you were getting hugs and drinking beers. It was just, they love Americans, and they love having visitors come down, and I really enjoy it's another place I'd like to go back to, Australia. It's so different than here, but yet so much like us.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Europe. I love to travel through Europe. I was conducted with a team, capability and preparedness audits throughout the world, especially in Europe, where a team of us would go to a refinery or a terminal and spend 2 weeks there looking at their facility and their past oil spills, historical events, and their training records, and then try to come up with ways that they could improve their operations and their training to be more prepared and better for an oil spill. Fun jobs.
Right.
And when you're you're dealing with something like oil spills, the same thing in Russia and the same thing in Saudi. It isn't an aggressive business. It's not like selling arms. I mean, everybody wants to keep their environment clean. Everybody welcomes you in. It's like the medical industry. It was always a value that people wanted to learn from you to prevent it. They don't want their kids swimming in an ocean filled with oil.
Right.
So that was always an advantage to me that I saw over the world.
What are some of your most favorite places that you went? Like, what are, aside from Singapore, and you talked a lot about Russia, what other countries that maybe we haven't mentioned yet are worth mentioning that you've traveled to?
Well, frankly, Nicaragua. Obviously, England. I really enjoy England. It's a wonderful place, and it's so overwhelming to see things that are 1,000 years old. But,
right.
The trips there. I can't say that about Japan. Japan was so different to me, and I spent a short period of time there. Maybe that's why, but there's each place has its own qualities and its own memories.
Yeah.
Singapore just has so many good ones, I guess.
What about the food? I know I would always love to hear about that. How was the food in different places? Did it make you? Did your stomach get upset, or were you able to sort of explore and be okay?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because Mackenzie, your sister, is sitting at the airport in Haiti. She's been there for 4 days, and she's having some problems, and her flight's been delayed 8 hours now.
Oh, jeez.
So it just comes with the territory. I used to call it the Nigerian two-step, and I would always lose weight when I got home because it was something that was going to be around for 2 or 3 days, and it's just because your stomach. It doesn't imply there's anything wrong with their food. It's just that your stomach is different. The food is different, and what you're eating is different.